Thank you very much for joining on a Friday morning. We'll go through the webinar for the open call from the EUCAIM project, where we're looking to include new beneficiaries into our consortium for the purpose of data incorporation and AI training and validation use cases. I'll start sharing my screen. Okay, so I hope you can all see my screen. Maybe another housekeeping note is to please make use of the chat function or the Q&A function. So if at any point you have any questions, you can always write your message in the chat or in the Q&A, and then we can answer it when we have time, and perhaps also go to some live questions later on. With that said, maybe we can do a very brief introduction of all the speakers today. They're listed in alphabetical order, so we're just going by that. So I'm happy to introduce Ignacio Blanquer. Maybe you can briefly say hi.
Yes, thank you, Peter. Welcome everybody for today's webinar. I'm Ignacio Blanquer. I'm the responsible of the core services of the EUCAIM platform. I'm a professor of the Technical University of Valencia in Spain.
Thank you very much. And then the next one would be our scientific coordinator, Luis Matipomati.
Well, thanks, Peter, and thanks also everybody being able to being today with us in this webinar. I'm, as Peter said, the scientific coordinator of the European Infrastructure for Cancer Imaging in Oncology, and I'm working in Valencia, Spain.
All right, thank you. I myself am next on the list, so my name is Peter Rodebeke. I'm a project manager for the European Institute of Biomedical Imaging Research based in Vienna. We are coordinating on an administrative side the EUCAIM project. All right, next on the list we have Katrin Ricklund.
So good morning and welcome everybody. Happy that you attend this webinar. I'm the work package leader for work package 7. That is, among other things, is responsible for the calls. I'm professor senior consultant in radiology in Umeå University up north in Sweden.
Thank you. And then last but not least, we have our project officer from the European Commission, Alexandra Veselovska.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Alexandra Veselovska. I'm a project officer of the EUCAIM project, but also I work in DG Connect, the unit which is the policy lead for the European Cancer Imaging Initiative, which the EUCAIM project is the core element and is implementing, in fact. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I'll proceed with a very brief overview of the agenda for today. So we'll switch back and forth between the different speakers. First, we'll have an introductory part with a short introduction that's currently going on. Then we'll have a brief introduction on the Cancer Imaging Initiative that Alexandra just mentioned, and then we'll close off the introductory part with a short introduction and overview of the EUCAIM project. Then we'll dive a bit deeper into the open call application procedure with topics like the objectives and use cases, of course, the eligibility and other requirements, the application itself, and also a bit of information on the evaluation. And then we'll close off with a feedback session. We'll have a slider review and also an open Q&A. And regarding the slider, we do have a very quick sort of survey that we can do live that will come after the introductory part. You can very easily join this with scanning the QR code with your phone, and then we'll have some overview of who the audience is and what we can do with your feedback. All right, now I'm happy to hand off for the first introduction to Alexandra. Please just let me know to move the slides.
Okay, thank you, Peter. As I said, my name is Alexandra Veselovska. I'm the program officer in DG Connect, and we are the policy DG behind the European Cancer Imaging Initiative. So just to present briefly the context of this project. The European Cancer Imaging Initiative is an initiative which the Commission launched in December 2022, and which the EUCAIM project is implementing. Next slide, please. what is important to say, it is a flagship initiative of the Europe's Beating Cancer Plan, and the overall goal is to foster innovation and deployment of digital technologies for improved clinical decision-making, diagnostics, treatment, and prediction in cancer care. And this initiative was launched to capitalize on and bring forward the work of the cluster of 5 projects that we have been supporting under the Horizon 2020 research program. And the work of these projects, in fact, sets the basis and is brought forward in the European Cancer Imaging Initiative, which we are supporting under the Digital Europe funding program. So these 5 projects, they have been addressing, they are, most of them, some of them have already finished or they are finishing this year. They are addressing specific clinical use cases, and they have, among others, been creating data sets and interoperable repositories of health images within their respective projects. And they have also developed guidelines and best practices on how medical imaging can be used for AI development. And based on that work and the achievements and the alignment that these projects have achieved, the EUCAIM project is deploying a European federated digital infrastructure of cancer images and related clinical data. And why are we doing this, or why do we think it's useful? It's to address the big challenge that the AI developers are facing and the researchers in imaging are facing, which is the fragmentation of the health data and medical images in Europe, and to support those users in the development and benchmarking of AI-based cancer management tools. So this infrastructure will provide access to large amounts of cancer imaging data to researchers and to innovators, and create a trusted framework which will facilitate and speed up performance of multi-center studies involving imaging data. It's a big project, you will see, and it involves many of the institutions that were involved in the AI for Health imaging cluster of projects, many clinical data providers, also European infrastructures. And it has been designed, this project, so it has a timeline of 48 months. It's now in month 16, and it was designed in a way so as to allow potentially interested stakeholders to join the consortium approximately halfway through, to enlarge the network with further data collections, cancer image data holders, to increase the geographic dimension, data modalities, cancer targets, and also to include new reliable AI algorithms trained on the wealth of data available in the repository. So this is what this event today is about, to present this open call for new beneficiaries. So next slide, Peter, please. So this is just to give some further context of the work that the project is doing and the broader picture of what we want to achieve under the initiative and the policy context. So as you see, the EUCAIM project is at the core and is deploying the Cancer Image Europe platform, which will be an experimentation platform for the development and benchmarking of AI tools towards precision medicine in cancer care. The infrastructure, the goal is to federate data coming from research repositories, from European research infrastructures, hospitals, clinical centers, all those who hold such data, also, for instance, cancer screening programs, and to make this these large amounts of high quality data available to researchers, innovators, and clinicians, and support them in making the best use of such data towards development of solutions that will ultimately benefit cancer patients. So EUCAIM is the main action, but the Commission is also supporting and will be supporting. There are other actions that are supporting the goal of this initiative. So under the Digital Europe funding program, we are also supporting the establishment of European edge and cloud services and high performance computing facilities, which are necessary for computing intensive operations, such as training the AI algorithms. We are also supporting testing and experimentation facility for health, which provides services to SMEs to test the AI solution in real life environments. And one of the use cases is cancer. This is the TEF Health project. We are also supporting digital innovation hubs, of which many address the health sector. And these innovation hubs help with the further uptake of digital technologies in health. Also, more recently, in January 2024, the Commission presented the AI Innovation Package, which aims to foster an innovative European AI ecosystem for startups and innovators in multiple sectors, including health. And there also the importance of such data spaces, such as the Cancer Image Europe platform for the development of future AI models in healthcare is highlighted. In terms also of federating cancer images, there is another call forthcoming under the EU4Health work program to support further integration of cancer images into this pan-European infrastructure, in particular to foster the screening programs. So in terms of policy context, of course, the overall policy context is the European data strategy, and in particular, the European Health Data Space Regulation, which was in fact adopted by the European Parliament earlier this week. And this initiative is supporting the goal of the regulation for a particular vertical, let's say, and it's developing its infrastructure in alignment with the EHDS framework. And also the AI Act, obviously, is another relevant piece of legislation for the EUCAIM project, because the AI Act aims to foster the development and uptake of trustworthy, safe and trustworthy AI. And to develop this trustworthy AI solution in healthcare, we will need access to large amounts of high quality and diverse data sets. And this is what the Cancer Imaging Initiative and the platform developed by EUCAIM is about. So this open call, I'm not going to take much longer, is an opportunity for those of you who are working in the area of AI innovation in imaging to join EUCAIM consortium, to contribute to the goals of this initiative, and to join forces. So I hope it's interesting for you, and please make the best of it. Ask all the questions you may have and apply. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We already received one question in the Q&A section, which has been answered already by Ignacio. So that's there in writing. Please be reminded that that's, of course, always a possibility, and we'll do our best to get to your questions as soon as possible, either in writing or live. Okay, so then we can move on to our next speaker, which is our scientific coordinator, Luis Mati Bonmati, who will give some more context of the project itself after we've heard where it's positioned in the EU landscape.
Thanks a lot, Peter, and thanks a lot, Alexandra, for that not only overview, but also for the huge help that the European Commission and your department is pushing this infrastructure for the best of personalized imaging and personalized medicine. And why do we need this infrastructure? So in the next slide, I will try to share with you the trouble of transition from research and local solutions to the real world scenario, and sharing solutions between hospitals and departments. And we were facing on the last years of developments the trouble of reproducibility. And although now we are working deeply in how should we obtain these rhythmic data and prediction models using AI for the best of the patients with cancer, recognizing that we have to evaluate the so many different habitats, biological components, different treatments target to specific pathways in the cancer development. Doing that on the real world was a problematic issue. And in some way, AI can help us to reduce the trouble of reproducibility and to increase the transition of the AI solutions and prediction models for the clinical practice. Therefore, helping not only researchers, also companies, industries, and at the end, clinicians for a better and higher prediction medicine. In the next slide, we are recognizing that there is a need not only for reproducibility, also for explainability and completeness of the data and the variables we are using in our prediction model. Therefore, it's not only linking repositories to have as much data images as possible to allow AI to generate adequate solutions to the troubles we are asking for. It's also a need to integrate the right amount of data to solve a clinical question we need to evaluate. And to do that means going into the diagnostic pathways, treatment allocations, and hospitals and electronic health records to foster through common data models and interoperability the amount of data coming from the molecular, clinical, laboratory, and treatments that will complement the data we do obtain through medical analysis and radiomics to generate these adequate prediction models. So in the next slide, I was willing to reinforce that therefore the three main components we are engaging in this infrastructure that will be open to researchers, innovators, and clinicians is data. Data means images to allow AI tools to develop their issues on reproducibility, radiomics, explainability, and completeness. Also, we are providing tools, and there is a catalog of tools and to do most of these actions. And these tools will be updated, and we will have quality assurance on how do they work. And we are allowing communities of researchers and willing to answer specific topics, like as an example, renal cancer or liver tumors or brain glioblastomas. So research communities, tools, and data is the main strength of this infrastructure. And in the next slide, this is just to realize the relevance of data harmonization to decrease uncertainties on the metrics we do obtain from medical imaging, and all the efforts we are doing will be translated into the different tools that will be allocated within the European infrastructure, EUCAIM. Next one. And this is just to remember that we want to approach a federated infrastructure, linking the so many different repositories and hospitals and screening programs and altruist organization, but also we will develop, or we have developed, a central repository, the Atlas of Cancer Images, to allow a fast AI deployment. That's the research platform, and the federated data warehouses linking the main hospitals to allow these fast observational studies to be done with images plus relevant clinical, molecular, genetic, and laboratory data. In the next one, this is just to realize the three main scenarios we are looking for and we are fostering. Of course, AI researchers that will develop tools based on clinical needs, clinical researchers that will have to discuss the models, the prediction models we do need to permeate clinical practice, and of course innovators, and we want to help companies on their medical device regulatory pathway to generate as much as possible adequate tools on the clinical practice. Next one. Next slide. These are the two main axes. On the left, you have the central repository where we will store a huge amount of images that will be anonymized for researchers willing to do fast AI research on them. But we also are linking 12 today, but 20 tomorrow, and maybe 30 at the end of the project, big hospitals and small and medium-sized hospitals willing to share their data to research projects where medical images are relevant by using, of course, all the AI tools needed to obtain reproducible models and research results. Next one. And what can we expect from the infrastructure? It will be great if we can incorporate as many partners as feasible. We really will have an atlas of cancer images with more than 60 million annotated cases and more than 100,000 patients. That's the atlas. Then we will link hospitals, and we are looking for more than 21 clinical sites in as many countries as possible. And we want to link their data warehouses and, of course, screening programs. We will have an AI platform to generate reproducible image-based decision support models or systems in oncology. We want to have an impact on the clinical pathways, on how radiology is helping patients and oncology with this generation of biomarkers and panels to identify the right treatment all over the pathway of these patients, not only at diagnosis, also on the follow-up, treatment, reallocation, relapses, and so on. And we also want to have a voice to influence policymakers related to the European health data space, AI legislation, ethical, legal, and social implementations, and sustainability initiatives. And at the end, we are working hard to have a legal recognition through the EDICS, which is the European Digital Innovative Consortium. Next one. And I do think this is the last one on the sustainability. We are working now on this EDIC sustainability plan. This is a multi-country project. Today, we are 10 countries. Now we changed from 7 to 10, and we expect to be 11 in a few weeks. There is already a working group with a Spanish coordination of that on the development of all the documents and links and discussions on how this infrastructure will have to be established. And on the next one, this is my last slide, really pushing you to be part of this initiative and infrastructure. We want data from hospitals, data warehouses for secondary use, local research repositories allocated in research programs and projects. We really want to attract those external research and cloud platforms to develop new tools and models. And we want to help companies on those post-project exploitation. And at the end, we will really love to improve the way medical imaging and radiomics and decision and prediction models are used at the hospitals for the best of the patients. And I think that was my final slide. This is the overview on the institutions, hospitals, and research centers. We did have at the beginning, we were 66 plus 10 associated partners, so at the end 76. And we started with 22 stakeholders, but now we are more than 140 or 50. So we are so proud on the attraction of the infrastructure and so let's say, willing to further improve this network of collaborators on both parts, on the partners and on the stakeholders. And the next one. Yeah, that was my presentation. And thanks a lot for being here today.
Yes. Thank you very much, Luis. We already see quite a number of questions and discussions in the Q&A section, so thank you very much for that. Please keep that coming. We'll do our best to answer everything in writing while the presentation is ongoing, and otherwise we'll get to some of the questions at the very end of the webinar as well. Of course, some of the questions will be answered during the slides anyhow, so please stay tuned and hopefully we'll be able to explain it. For now, we do have a very brief Slido survey for everyone. I will also put the actual link to the survey in the chat. Here you can just very quickly complete a brief survey. It would help us out a ton. It will ask you basically where are you based, what type of institution you belong to, whether you apply to whether you're planning to apply to our open call, and if you plan, what type of cases are you responding. So I will leave this up for a second. You can also see the link in the chat, so you can also browse through the website yourself if you don't want to do it on your phone. That said, I think we can maybe very briefly go to a couple of questions that were already answered, just so we can see them. So we got a couple of questions on the types of modalities that are being included. So please have a look at the Q&A. You can see that we are open to a lot. Same goes for the cancer types. We're open to all cancer types in that sense. So that's always very good to know. There were some questions about the requirements for the data sets. We'll touch base on that in a bit. And there were also some questions regarding the funding and other eligibility criteria. We'll also have some slides on that. All right. We'll circle back to the Slido at the very end. So please, if you haven't already opened it on your phone through the QR code or through the link, you'll have a chance now again, and then we'll get back to that at the end and look at some of the survey results. With that, I think we can now switch from the open call, introduction of the entire project and the positioning. We can switch to more of the open call application procedure itself. So I'm happy to hand off to Katrine to talk a bit more about the call objectives and use cases.
Thank you so much, Peter. So with this very good background on the EUCAIM platform project, we dig deeper into the call objectives and the use cases. And as we have heard, the goal of the EUCAIM is really to build Cancer Image Europe, a pan-European digital hybrid federated infrastructure of cancer-related radiological and nuclear medicine images and related information. And the related information is really important to be ready to use this platform for develop of AI tools for precision medicine using precision imaging. And we are here today because we are now launching the open call for new beneficiaries to join the already quite large consortium. And the objective for this open call is really to onboard new cancer image data holders, to increase the geographic dimensions, data modalities, or cancer targets, and also to include new reliable AI algorithms trained on the cancer image data of the repository. And you can see the code on the screen through which you can go directly to the open call. So the objective is to enlarge the consortium to include more data, tools, and use cases. So we go to the next one. And then what is a use case? A use case could be different things dependent on your perspectives. So therefore we have kind of a definition for the use cases for this call. And it refers to a specific scenario or situation in which the EUCAIM platform is used to address a real-life scientific or clinical question where access and reuse of large amount of cancer data and related information can improve the patient outcomes. And as you heard before, the patient outcomes is really the main goal for all work that we are doing in this project. In the end of the day, it should be a better world for our patients. And there are several different use cases that can be accepted for this open call. It could be incorporation of large amount of cancer imaging data to the platform to make these available for further reuse, which can be leveraged to address relevant clinical questions. It could be development, training, benchmarking, or validation of an existing AI algorithm. Or it could be a clinical use case which addresses a specific question, and it's all about identification of different imaging biomarkers. And the implementation duration will be until the end of the EUCAIM project, which is in December 2026. And after that, we should have a sustainable model. And Louise mentioned the EDIC as a way to create a sustainable model for the EUCAIM platform, which will continue to survive long time after the project has ended. It will be a stable resource in Europe for AI development, initially for cancer imaging with related information. So if we go to the next one, just an example, it could be a use case that would like to identify imaging biomarkers, for instance, for early detection of breast cancer. And to do that, you might need to develop a robust and efficient AI algorithm to help us radiologists to identify potential malignancies at an early stage. And there are, of course, different steps to do this. We need data collection and integration and annotation. We need training of the AI model. We need to validate the AI model. We need to validate the AI model externally with real-life data from the clinical world. And in the end, we need to integrate the new algorithm into clinical workflows. And this takes time and need collaboration and a lot of data. And when we have done this, we expect some outcomes. For this case, we expect improved early detection of breast cancer through the identification of relevant imaging biomarkers. And we also know that these algorithms can help us because we are in a shortage of people, so we can really be a support in the clinical work. And with this, we can enhance the efficiency in radiology workflows. And as I said, reduce the time required for manual review. And we can combine manual and algorithm-supported review of all these millions of examinations. So with this, we can increase accuracy in distinguishing between benign and malign lesions and reduce false positives. And with that, we can reduce unnecessary interventions. So in the end, we can see some empowerment of healthcare professionals with a valuable decision support tool for a more informed clinical decisions. And that is what we are aiming for all different use cases in different diagnoses with different cancers. So with that, I think it's time to hand over to Peter again.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll just briefly describe the overall application procedure, just so everyone has an idea of the steps that are happening or that someone needs to go through. So this is just a very, very simple flow chart describing all the steps. So if you're considering to apply, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. First of all, the eligibility of the Digital Europe program applies, since that's what the consortium is funded under. That means that also all new partners would have to comply with those eligibility criteria. Another thing that we obviously need, and you can see in the application form itself, would be a participant identification number called a PIC number. That's something that you can register with the European Commission. Registering a PIC number is a very quick task. Validating your organization can sometimes take some time, but this is something that we can do in parallel, basically. That's not something that needs to be completed prior to the application. You just need the PIC number itself. So if you are unfortunately not eligible, that means the no flow would apply. In that case, you can still send a letter of intent if you're interested in working with us, and that would mean you will be kept up to date, and we will include you in future communications, and perhaps we can still work out a way of how we can collaborate, basically. If you are fulfilling the eligibility criteria, we would, of course, very much encourage you to apply for the open call because there is some funding available. You can more or less find all the information in the open call website and then the application form itself. After your application, we will do a very first quick eligibility check where we will just check if indeed you are eligible under the Digital Europe program, if all the information that we need for a proper evaluation has been completed. That will then be forwarded within our Access Committee that is doing all the evaluations, and they will look at all the legal and ethical stuff, the technical and scientific information that we received, and do a full evaluation of the application. If there is something that is unclear or that is still missing, we will reach out to you to clarify things, or perhaps you can amend some things and you forgot to upload something, or at the time of the application this was not yet available. So there is some opportunity there. It's not just a submit and that's it. We are of course willing to work with all the applicants. After the evaluation and the assessment, if everything is good and we ranked you very high and you would be eligible and fulfill all the other criteria, you would then be invited to the consortium. This means that you will be basically part of a grant agreement amendment that we have with the European Commission to officially include you as an organization into the consortium. This, of course, comes with some signature of the grant agreement, of the consortium agreement we have, and so on. And after that, we can then proceed with providing you with the actual funding, and then we can start with the implementation. So that's just very briefly the overview. We expect, and I think in terms of timing, this is something important as well. We expect that this is something that will take until the end of the year. So it is quite a lengthy procedure from application, evaluation to inclusion in the consortium, just so you're aware of this. Regarding the general eligibility criteria, I think this is also something that's good to know. So like I mentioned, applicants must be eligible to be funded under the Digital Europe program. This also includes undergoing an ownership control assessment. That's something that's required by the European Commission. This is more or less just an additional form to establish whether or not your organization is controlled by another organization that is established outside of the European Union, for instance. All these documents and references are linked on the call text website, so you can have a look at that, which includes the general admissibility conditions. Eligible countries are more or less the European Union, and everyone who was part of the Digital Europe program at the time that EUCAIM was funded. There is also perhaps something interesting to note: the General Model Grant Agreement and an annotated version of that. You can have a look at that as well if you just want to inform yourself. Here, for instance, there's Article 40 that will describe the accession to the grant agreement procedure, so how that would actually work from a contractual standpoint. That said, another important point is also that applicants have to commit to 50% co-funding of their budget. This is a 50% funded scheme, meaning that the funds you receive should be matched by an equal amount from your end. Where you get this co-funding is open. You can either do this yourself, you can have it from other sources, perhaps a national grant. That's more or less up to you. There are some important things to note when reporting the funds, but we will of course help you with that and also provide some guidance on that. Furthermore, all applicants must of course comply with ethical and legal requirements in their either local or national regions, to ensure that also all the sharing and using of the data is, of course, allowed. And then, like I mentioned, applicants also have to commit to provide further information and documentation on technical, ethical, or legal matters if needed. That's if something is unclear for us during the evaluation, we will of course get back to you and ask for more detail. So a bit more about the countries that are eligible. This does include widening countries, and applications from these countries are encouraged. So you can see on the screen an overview of the widening countries. These are defined by the European Commission, and we are very, very happy to receive applications from those. And in case where 2 or more applications are deemed equal in merit, we will prioritize further geographical expansion of EUCAIM and the Cancer Image Europe infrastructure, just so we've mentioned that. And I think with that, we're going back to the legal and ethical requirements and the scientific requirements. I'm happy to hand back to Katrine.
Oh, thank you so much. So then we go to some more requirements. As you know, there is always requirements in application and in research, and especially in clinical research where we have sensitive data. So because of that, you need to provide a certificate of ethics approval, which should have been done by an official ethical committee. And we need that one before the final approval of the application can be done. And you also have to demonstrate the due diligence in complying with GDPR before the final approval can be done. And this could be done via data protection impact assessment reports, independent audits, membership of codes of conduct, or certification schemes or other equivalent documentation. And when we have selected the successful applicants, they are committed to provide related documentation, and this must be done in English, or we must receive an English translation, because no one of us is knowable of all the different countries that we have in our community, Europe. You'd also need to sign all the relevant agreements, and you should be available to collaborate in the ethical verification activities, providing support to data access requesters if needed. So there is this part must be done, so to say, before the final agreement of the selected projects. We can go to the next one. So if we have some applicants that require access to EUCAIM data for the development of the use cases, then you must provide a detailed explanation of the intended use of the data, meaning you need to explain which is the goals and the aims, and what are you aiming to do with the data that you would like to use. And of course, you also need to provide a description of the requested data, format, data sources. In fact, what do you need to solve the use case? And you should also provide information about the anonymized or pseudonymized format of the data that you are requiring access to. And you should also commit an AI risk analysis before the final approval can be done. And preferable, you should use the Altai tool 21 to comply with the 7 requirements of trustworthy AI that is established under the ethics guidelines for trustworthy AI. And furthermore, the AI tools must comply with the current applicable European and national legislation. For instance, GDPR, as we mentioned earlier on. And there could also be some additive national privacy legislations that you must fulfill. And it's, of course, up to each applicant to understand which national privacy legislation you must follow. So we take the next one. In this stage, I would like to hand over to Ignacio, who will tell you a lot more about the pure data, so to say. So please, Ignacio.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for passing the floor. So some of the questions that you have addressed during, the question and answer section of this webinar are also being covered here. So we are not going to go deeply in the technical details of the EUCAIM platform, but you have there a link of the technical webinar, which is also available in our website, so you can have a more in-depth understanding of how the different core services work. So, but for focusing on the type of data that we are dealing at this moment, we are focusing on radiology and nuclear medicine cancer images. So any modality will be eligible or will be relevant, especially those that are, and of course, they should be in DICOM format. This is mandatory for our case. So we also will recommend that they have annotations. The annotations could come as a DICOM sec on NIFTY format, linked to the original DICOM images, and also RT are permissible as so we can transform it into DICOM sec. We are also accepting histopathological images. So next slide. Yeah, so along with the medical imaging data, we are collecting and providing to the AI cases for development some clinical information. We are developing a hyperontology in which defines all the different types of different items that we collect and the different terminologies. This hyperontology is published in beta version in Zenodo. I have put the link in one of the questions, but the mandatory clinical information that should for sure accompany this imaging are the HR diagnosis, sex, topography, the site, morphology, the histology, and the number of days between the imaging procedure and the tumor incidence. That's mandatory. There are other relevant information that we are collecting on the cases, and we are adapting to this specific ontology, which are listed there, like demographic, like tumor makers, that diagnostic procedures, and other radiological information and histopathological report. So next slide. Yeah. So the functional requirements. So the data sets, so we call data sets a collection of images that is coherent. For example, coherent because they refer to a specific cancer type, must be accompanied by the suitable metadata elements. So we have defined it in the project. You can get more information if you go through the technical webinar. A level of classification in tiers, saying that we have a minimum compatibility at the level of the metadata of the collection or different levels. So we are also supporting the process of converting this data that is available to a fully compliant data within the model that we have in EUCAIM. So the minimum information that there should be a suitable metadata for the data set, that's collections, that assure that we can understand that meets the project objectives and is aligned with the best practices in cancer research and data sharing. The data should be preferably anonymized. We can also accept pseudonymized data. We will change the pseudonymized item in order to have a second level of the identification. And the applicants, we really encourage the providers to ensure that the data that they provide is fully anonymized, because there will be some complexity in our side to understand, especially for data that is not fully compliant with the clinical structure that we have, that is fully anonymized. So we recommend that the data is pre-processed for ensuring that it's anonymized. We will provide the tools to anonymize the data before they are pulled to the central storage. There's two ways of collaborating: pulling data, pushing data, or uploading data to our central storages, or linking through the federation as a data node that provides in a distributed and federated mode the data. So next slide. Yeah. That was for the data providers, and let's go to the AI training and validation. So we are providing an environment the main difference or the main special characteristic of EUCAIM is this is a platform that already provides computing resources for performing in situ experiments. So the data can be deposited with the platform, and it does not have to be downloaded to the premises of the researchers. So in this way, we provide a powerful environment with more than 1,000 cores with 30 GPUs in order to process to give support to this processing. Therefore, we have to ensure that the algorithms that we have are compliant to our platform. But basically, if for the cases of the processing algorithms, we expect that they can be embedded in a container. The people that work in this environment understand preferably Docker and Kubernetes as examples. So we will make this running. For the case of the distributed processing, so we support distributed processing for those data that cannot be uploaded to the central platform and remains at the hospital premises. These hospital premises should be incorporated to provide computer resources. And then for these cases, we will run federated learning and federated processing. For these cases, we have two platforms, PEP, Biomed, and Flower. But Flower also provides different types of environment for running. So I think it's quite flexible for many possibilities. If you have doubts, if your tools could be compatible, don't hesitate to contact us and we will try to explain it better. Of course, it is very important for us that the tools that are defined and that are offered should be very well detailed. We need to ensure that they comply with all the specifications. We have some guidelines for development of tools. And they can be because we will adapt them to be part of the platform. So I think it's more detailed in the next slide. Yeah, exactly. So the minimum requirements is that we have the developers have to provide the data usage and privacy policy, security documentation, and instruction for us. And some examples will be very relevant. We will be also very eager to have the access to the data repository so we can prepare the container images of the tools in a way that fulfills the security regulations that we have in the project. Other information will be relevant that describe it there. And for models, we will also would like to have a technology readiness level assessment from your side in order to understand how close to production are those models. So I think that was all. Let me go to the next slide. Yeah, I think that I can hand over again.
Yes,
to Catherine, not to Peter.
That's a very, very brief one. For me, more or less. Indeed, now that we've heard a lot of the technical things, and again, thank you very much for the many questions we received through the Q&A. I think we can sort of switch gears towards the last bit of the webinar presentation. So. Just as a reminder, the open call website is live. It's on cancerimage.eu/open call with a dash in between. Here you can find a lot of information that we've just touched on today in writing, so you can read up on that. It includes the call text with the different objectives, scope, and use cases, for instance. It also includes information on the budget, who can apply, how you can apply, and then also details on the evaluation of the applications. You can also read up on a lot of the eligibility criteria, both from general eligibility on whether or not you are allowed to participate under the Digital Europe program, but also the ethical and legal requirements, the scientific quality, and the technical requirements. And then we also have an overview of the minimum requirements of the data, where we have a sort of a tiered structure. You can also reach the application form through that website. We believe it's fairly straightforward, but if at any point you should have questions, you can always email opencall@cancerimage.eu with any question you have, either on the eligibility or the technical side, or also just practical matters in terms of submitting your application. For the evaluation, so if you've applied, like I said, we will do a very brief eligibility check from the coordination team, whether or not you indeed would be eligible to participate. Then we will have the sort of evaluation on the entire content of the application that's being done by the EUCAIM Access Committee. That includes the ethical and legal review of the scientific and technical aspects that you've submitted. And then we will follow more or less a very similar procedure as the European Commission does, with a decision on approval and rejections that's being done or proposed by the Access Committee, and then proposed to the the EUCAIM Steering Committee, where we will have the different rankings, and then forward this to the European Commission for a sort of a final approval, because they also need to check, of course. And then after that, everyone is informed of this decision, and the successful applicants would move forward with inclusion in the grant agreement, with the signature of all the agreements, and so on. So that said, to summarize, all legal and ethical requirements must, of course, be fulfilled. You must commit to provide all the ethics approvals where needed. There are some questions about that in the Q&A. I'm sure that we'll get to them, or the unanswered ones, in a moment. And you also have to demonstrate that you, of course, comply with all the different applicable laws, such as GDPR. The applications themselves will be assessed on scientific relevance, with a scoring system from 0 to 5 in the different categories. So very much similar to the things from the European Commission, if you're aware of those, or if you're familiar with those. And then last but not least, full compliance with the technical requirements is not necessarily mandatory. Of course, from EUCAIM's side, we can provide technical support where needed. Higher levels of compliance are, of course, considered an added value in the application. That's the reality of it. But it's not that you need to be fully compliant already during your application. There's also the value in us learning how to become compliant in that sense. So I think now we can sort of briefly circle back to the Slido, and I'll have to change my screen sharing. So I will briefly do that. All right. Okay, so it should come up. We received some replies. Of course, you're still able to complete the survey. We'll leave this open, so if you haven't completed it yet, please feel free to refer to the link in the chat. It's also valuable for us to look at this afterwards. So we'll leave it open. For now, we'll just have a quick look at the different answers we gotten. So where is your institution based? I see a lot of Spain, a lot of Belgium. It seems that we have a fairly decent geographical spread. What type of institution do we belong to? So here we can clearly see that the academics and the hospitals are in the lead, but we do also have some representation from industry and SMEs, and also some other. For applying to the open call, currently this is a very good news. We're happy to see that 53% of the respondents are indeed applying to the open call, with a large portion also still undecided, and only a small number that is not applying. We then asked, if you apply, what kind of use case will you provide? Multiple options will be possible here. I still see some people responding, so thank you for that. Here, it's very even for between data provision and data usage for AI development, and then we also have some on data usage for clinical studies. So this is also quite good to see that there are applicants for all the different categories. Then if people selected other, we can also see a little bit of a word cloud. We'll have to probably analyze this a bit further. and then looking at what people foresee as the primary challenge. This is also, of course, an important thing here. We see that the financial challenges are the top ranked one, followed by technical challenges and legal ethical challenges. Yes, we also have some other challenges that are being mentioned, of course, here. Bureaucracy is one, and also the differences between EU and UK eligibility. So that's, of course, very valuable to us. Thank you for that. We will, of course, continue to look at this and take those questions and comments to heart. I think right now we can proceed with the actual remaining portion, the remaining time. So we have almost half an hour for the Q&A. I see that we've already answered a lot. We've answered 40 questions already, but there's still a couple that are open. So maybe we can just do most of those live. So I'll start from the top because those are the oldest questions, and we'll see how far we get. So the first question would be that a set of documentation can also be submitted at a later stage, including a certificate of ethics. Is that needed in case when retrospective data is already anonymized and in compliance with GDPR? I don't know who would be best suited for this to answer. Maybe I can give a first try. I think if data is fully anonymized, then of course GDPR requirements are minimal. Then I think any ethics approvals would also be equally minimal if needed at all. So I see some nodding heads. That's good. All right, I think then we can move to the next question. Next one is that there's a lot of focus on disease detection as an endpoint, and is it allowed to do research to increase workflow efficiencies as a use case, or focused on personalized scanning, training of radiologists to interact with AI?
Well, the answer is yes. I mean, that will be also a nice use case. No, it's not only whatever we will have an impact on a pathway, that will be a relevant question to be solved with the use of AI.
Yeah, I would like to add that even if the example was of detection of breast cancer, but also prediction, prognostication, early treatment evaluation are of high degree of interest in this open call, of course.
All right, thank you very much. Then we have one more question. I think Ignacio would be the right one to answer this. As a data user, what happens with the algorithm? Are any rights surrendered?
Yeah, I've seen this question several times. So in the question answer section. So I mean, what we expect is that you develop the algorithm using the platform. So the IPRs are yours. I mean, you are the developer of the platform. I mean, you will be part of the consortium. All the partners that are added to the open call will be part of the consortium with the same rights of the consortium. So whatever that you develop is your foreground and is yours. However, as part of the consortium, we expect that the platform, EUCAIM, will have the right to put these tools on the catalog of tools available within the platform. So the new users can use it with the conditions that we decide in the platform level. Right? But the IPRs are yours.
Wonderful, thank you. Then we have a question regarding datasets on musculoskeletal imaging. Are there any datasets of that kind expected, and could they present a use case of tumor detection using this modality? They do not have an annotated dataset yet, but they could provide some data.
Well, maybe I can start. I mean, whatever modality is very much welcome. I mean, it's not only PET or MR or CT, and ultrasound is also plain films. And at least for bone tumors, that's critical. So please go ahead. And the minimum annotation we do need is there a lesion there, which type of lesion, and maybe age of the patient. I mean, some minimum things that will facilitate. the researchers to do their job properly.
Yes, thank you. Then I think this is also a question that was asked multiple times, but is there a minimum number of subjects for new data provider?
I can take it first. So, I mean, we don't have any threshold because the cancer types have their own, conditions, right? So maybe a small number of cases of a very rare and very specific and unique data set will be even much valuable than a large number of cases for a known cancer type. So we don't have a specific threshold for that.
Wonderful, thank you. There is a question regarding the data sharing agreement and data transfer agreements, because we answered another question that we expect that the data sharing and data transfer agreements will need to be customized to each specific center, but they should follow the spirit and compliance of the EHDS regulation. That's of course mandatory in some way. The question is it possible to review or download the mandatory terms somewhere in advance?
I answered this question, so I'll try to continue. So the point is that we are closing the DSA and DATA. So we are, I don't know exactly if we will be able to have the final versions on time for the call, right? So, but yeah, I think that there will be some possibilities of customizing to the needs of each hospital and center. We will be, open to that.
Yes, thank you. Right, then we have another question regarding the GDPR requirements for fully anonymized data. So I think we've answered that. A very quick one: if we have raw case-based data for MRI prostate, I think I can start to answer that. The easiest thing is to look at our public catalog. You can find that through the cancerimage.eu website. At the top, you can click on the dashboard, which will guide you to the public catalog. And there you can see all the data that is currently listed in the catalog that would be available through the platform. I don't know from the top of my head if we have raw case-based data available there. So I would suggest to look at the catalog and see if you can find it there.
I can also add something that to Peter. We in some way we are not storing case space, but you can go from MR images to the case space back. That's not the same quality, but that's one way. If there is any specific project that is really willing to store case space raw data, then it will be a research project based on that. But on the beginning, we are just only storage in DICOM images.
All right, thank you. We have one question regarding eligibility of UK partners. I think I saw another question of that, so maybe we can do them in one go. Unfortunately, the UK is not associated with Digital Europe. That means UK partners are not eligible in that sense. If they would not be available, the question then goes on whether or not it's possible to associate via a letter of support. We can, of course, accommodate that. However, we still would need to see in what way we could provide access, since the UK is not eligible. But we're happy to work that out. So please all UK partners, please just do reach out via email so we can see how to best do that. Okay, we have another question regarding musculoskeletal image. I think we already answered that. Then we have a question if histopathological images would be eligible and what requirements would be. Luis, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think histopathological images are not necessarily what we're looking for.
Yeah, no, you are right. I mean, you can, if you think those pathological images will annotate the cases, that's perfect. But this is not the place to allocate histopathological images, because that's outside on our scope, no? So just for annotation, that's perfect, nice. but we will focus on radiological images, radiological and nuclear medicine images.
Yes, thank you. The next question would be whether that we can already say something about the fees or compensation for third parties to access and use the data through EUCAIM. I think this is something that we still are working on, right? Looking towards Ignacio as well and Luis. I don't think
that in the end of the day be part of the model for the EDIC, because that is sustainable. During the project, it's one thing, but then we have the sustainable EUCAIM platform that hopefully will be an EDIC.
Yes, that's true. So we are of course working on the sustainability, and part of that is also figuring out what fees or compensation would be for providing, for accessing the data or the tools itself. I don't think we have a full answer right now. All right, then we have another question regarding the provision of non-EU data through an EU institution. I previously answered that this of course depends on the ethics approvals of that EU institution. And they're asking then as a follow-up question whether this is possible for instance, data from the Ukraine or from Switzerland. I think Ukraine was actually eligible with Digital Europe, so here I don't foresee any issues. And I think also for Switzerland, if the data clears ethics approvals for use in the EU, if it's still provided through an EU institution, I also don't foresee any issues. But perhaps Luis or Katrine have an idea on this.
Well, if I can say something, it will be, I mean, we need in some way an ethical committee's approval. If it's outside the EU, I mean, we will take care on that, but I do not foresee any big trouble on that. It's just to guarantee that an ethical committee on your hospital or your university or academic institution has provided an approval for that data or tools to be used on research.
Yes, thank you. All right, we have a practical question regarding the funding. So the funds are whether or not if the funds are lump sum or if the funds need to sort of be structured and reported. Here I can say that since applicants would become a full partner, it's not lump sum funding. It's just funding according to reporting, and indeed needs to be justified with things like timesheets, with things like receipts, and reported as you would be in a usual EC funded project. Again, if you have more specific questions about things like the funding or the reporting, I'm happy to answer those via email. But in essence, you would become a full partner. So that means that there will be regular reporting towards the European Commission. And you would also have to follow things like timesheets and the split into personnel costs, other cost categories, travel costs, and so on. All right, our next question would be if entities can apply to be a federated node if none of the tiers would be fulfilled at the time of the open call.
Yes, I mean, what we expect is that you will fulfill this requirement during the process of, during the 2 years that more or less, well, not the 2 years, I think it will be a shorter time. But yes, there's no limitations. You don't have to demonstrate that you are already compatible to apply in the call. So we will accompany you with this process.
All right, thank you. And then we have another question from someone who would like to apply as an AI developer but has not developed any algorithms yet. Would it be possible to apply to EUCAIM anyway?
Well, the answer is yes, you can apply, but this is a competitive mechanism. I mean, if the higher the amount of data you have, the best, and the higher the amount of AI tools or experience or the size of the group, the probabilities to be ranked and be applied to these new partners will be high.
Yes. Then we have a follow-up question that federated nodes must reach tier 2 of our defined 3-tier distribution. It is not clear if tier 2 has to be a prerequisite for the call or an aim to achieve. I think I can summarize what Ignacio just said. It's not a prerequisite. It would be nice to increase your tier levels or compliance levels during the time that you're working on it. But I don't think it's a prerequisite during the application. Did I get that right, Ignacio?
Absolutely. And we will have providers at the level of tier 2 during the whole life of the project. Tier 2 will be the minimum to reach.
Yes, wonderful. Then we have another question for the UK, which was answered. Okay, so we have a question regarding the financial contribution and what the total amount of money is that is available and the maximum number of applications we plan to accept. So on the call page, you can see this breakdown, but I'm happy to share it right now as well. There's roughly 200,000, I think slightly more than 200,000 euro available per application. This fund is, of course, 50% funded. So that means that the contribution from the European Commission would be slightly over 100,000. And then in total, we have funds for roughly 18 applications. These numbers are not necessarily set into stone. So if you do have a great idea, you can, if you can justify it, also ask for higher funds. You can, of course, also ask for lower funds if you think this would cover it. This would then also have an effect on the number of new applicants we can take up. So the full numbers are available on the open call page, but just to give you an idea of what we're looking to do. So the net contribution would be, I think it's 107,000, meaning that the total budget of the application would be 214,000, and we're trying to include roughly 18 new partners that way. Okay, a question regarding the application form. In case of companies who want to develop AI tools and train algorithms, what is our expectation regarding list research team members that will need to access the data sets? We need to define the word researcher, and are we expecting employees with PhD titles? I don't think we have any requirements there. It's just for us so we know how many people are going to work on it. If we can check just to see what level of expertise you're bringing. There's no requirements in that sense. So it's just to have an overview for us. Okay, then we have a question regarding MR spectroscopy and what type of data should be provided. Is this raw, processed, or any preferred format? I think preferred formats, we usually ask for DICOM. That's the main preferred format. Regarding what type of data should be provided, I would also have to defer to Ignacio or Luis.
Well, this is mainly on spectroscopy, which several years ago, I'm not touching that. But I do expect, as a standard as possible. Think that whatever we will store there will have to be used by other researchers. So try to keep the standard way data is MR spectroscopy data can be stored. So either if it's MR spectroscopic images or just the graphical whatever, I understand process will be much better, but think in mind that is just research for an open lab.
All right, thank you. Then we have a question from someone who provided infrastructure in ProCancer Eye. So happy you're here. As the integration in EUCAIM is intended to be federated, can they apply to this call as well? I think the call is open to everyone who is not already part of the EUCAIM consortium. I think that's the short answer.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Another question regarding histology whole slide images and if there is a set format, for instance, a .svs or DICOM. For radiology, it was clear from the slides, but for pathology, it was not mentioned. I think I can try to summarize Luis's answer from just now. The most standard image that is available for that type. So just following the standards of the practice in that sense.
It was on the presentation. It was maybe, I guess, a whole slice imaging, but again, I mean, this is a pathologist to annotate the cases. We don't want to go into digital pathology in our infrastructure. So even if it's TIFF or PNG or whatever, it will be nice. If it's DICOM, much better. Even if it's one slide, it's okay, and so it's up to you, but remember, we do not expect to allocate digital pathology, huge amount of digital pathology data into the infrastructure.
Yes. All right, we have another budget question. The budget is not meant for the salary of a PhD student, because 24 months max duration is not feasible to do a PhD. That's of course correct. Can the finances be used in addition to an already running project? It's absolutely correct. This is a short project. Of course, also the funds would probably not be sufficient to fully fund a PhD student. You can, of course, use these funds to augment any other funding or any other running projects that you have. This would indeed probably be very nice to also make sure that this 50% funding rate is covered. So there are not necessarily any requirements on how to spend it or on what type of staff to spend it. But yeah, please keep in mind that the prospective duration is between 18 to 24 months, and what you can do during that time and who it could be spent on. Okay, another question regarding data for data provider use cases is data that we already have, or can it be prospective data that is continuously updated?
I can take this one. You have to take into account, I mean, it depends a bit on the scenario. If you are a federated system, you are collecting your data and you have the keys to understand which new data correspond to which patient in this in a pseudonymized environment. If the data is transferred to the central storage, data will be anonymized, or basically we will through the keys that correlate to your pseudonymized ID. So it will not be possible to add additional data, I mean, in a longitudinal study. However, you could mark the current data that you have that is on the central storage as obsolete and upload again the whole bunch with all the new longitudinal data. For the central storage, that this is supported. But if you are a federated center, you can manage this by yourself.
Right, thank you. Then we have a very quick question: is if it's possible to join with preclinical imaging? I think that's not necessarily the scope. We're looking for clinical images.
No, you are right, Peter. We will have to focus on patients.
Yes. Another question: if images of ultrasounds are eligible.
Yeah, all of them.
I see.
We will appreciate ultrasound cases. Yeah.
Okay, we have some misunderstanding regarding that indeed whole slide images are covered, but there's also that histopathological images are not in focus. Please elaborate. I think if I can try to summarize what Luis said, the idea is that the whole slide images or histopathological images are supporting the clinical images or the from DICOM or other modalities. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, we will support the storage of histopathology. I mean, full slice imaging is perfect, but even single slice, whatever. The relevant thing is that we don't want to be the place where histopathology will be allocated. For those things, you have other infrastructures. This is an infrastructure for medical imaging coming from radiology and nuclear medicine. So our main focus is not histopathology, and we do not expect to have a huge amount of cases with histopathology, because that will be a trouble. No, we don't have that space in our infrastructure. So for just annotations, that's perfect. We will allow to do that, but it's not our focus.
Yes. All right. Seeing that we're nearing the end of our allotted time and we have only 5 questions remaining, I think we can try to speed through them so we cover everything. So one of the open questions, so if there's a minimum amount of data to provide, we already said that there is no minimum amount of data. This, of course, also depends on what cancer we're looking at and how much data is available and so on. Regarding technical requirements for AI algorithms, if there are any, and for instance, Docker container, I believe that that's indeed Dockerized or perhaps even Kubernetes could be used. I see Ignacio nodding, so that seems to be the right answer. Then we have a question regarding a new call under the EU for Health program related to cancer imaging. That's indeed something that is coming up. We will share that link on our website. There is another larger project that would also help to provide data to EUCAIM. So we will put that on our website and share it on our social media. So please keep an eye out for that. Mm-hmm. One further question regarding the number of participants. So we have 18 participants indeed that we are looking to add, and what would the split be between data providers and AI tool providers? Ideally 50-50, but we will look at what the applications are and see what would be best for the project. So we're not we don't have any set numbers here, if I remember correctly. So it could be 9 and 9 ideally, but it could also be 12 and 6. So we'll see how good the applications are. One further question regarding the ownership control declaration form. The page that refers to the competent authority is the applicant. Here, please do reach out if you have any questions. This is quite tricky. The competent authority in this case would be the competent authority of the country you're established in. So here there are people in your government who are the competent authority that are checking whether or not you are indeed under control of an entity that is not established in the European Union. They are the ones that validate this. But again, please, if you have any questions about this, any more in detail, just reach out and we're happy to help.
Also, they can ask to their data protection officers in their hospitals and universities that will clarify that.
Yes. All right, and then we reached the last question in the queue. Would this fit as a use case, using ultrasound images to train a robot to perform certain procedures?
I think so, yeah. If they are images, okay, that's perfect.
Yes. All right, that brings us to the very end. We managed to answer all the open questions exactly at 11:30. So I think that's perfect. We couldn't have asked for more. Right, there was quite a lot of questions and answers, 74 to be exact. We'll of course share those also on our website for everyone else to see as well. We'll try to summarize them as best as possible and perhaps extend some of the answers even. I think for now we can start to close this meeting. I'd like to thank all of the speakers. Like I said in the very beginning, we'll make a recording available as well, so you can watch back or share it with colleagues. Yeah, and I think with that, I'd like to hand off to Luis for any final words.
Oh, yes, to say thanks a lot to the my friends and colleagues. Alexandra, thank you very much for being with us today. Peter, thanks for managing the webinar, and thanks to the attendees, I mean, close to 100. And I really do hope that they will be engaged in this beautiful and innovative infrastructure.
All right, thank you very much. And with that, we will close the webinar. So have a nice day and hope to hear from you soon.